In this video, we're going to talk about the 7 idols of the American church. Before I do that, I want to give just a little snippet of backstory about idolatry. The first 2 commandments, that you will have no other gods before me, and that you will not make graven images to bow down and worship. Idols were things that people made as replacements to God and that they gave their worship to. If you go back to ancient Israel, back in the days of Moses and beyond, the people in the land had idols, and often things like Baal and Asherah were gods that were put into place seemingly out of necessity. If you rely on subsistence farming to survive, and you're wondering how on earth can we help the rain to come, how on earth can we help the crops to grow, it's awfully tempting to create gods that represent those things, Baal being the god of the storm, Asherah having some fertility imagery like the land, and these 2 gods coming together. There's just a lot of stories about that from ancient Mesopotamia. But the idea is that we, as a culture, are very tempted in certain ways to create gods that fulfill our needs and gods that can help us be in a favorable position within the world. That sets the stage for the 7 idols of American Christianity. And I do want to offer a little disclaimer. This obviously is not every church, but these are just trends that we see in general that we need to really take caution against and really teach against. The first is the idol of brand, the successful brand, the winner. That you're part of the thing that's growing. You're part of the hip thing in the community that's taken off, and like you get to be front and center to see all this stuff go down. And the teaching may be off base. There may be a lot of weird things going on, but you know what? It feels really good to be part of a winner. That's so American. We want to be part of the success story. And so it's tempting to cast the kingdom in American growth metrics rather than in kingdom growth metrics. And what I mean by that are, like how much money have we raised? How many people attend? How many services do you have? How many ministers do you have on staff, etc.? Those are metrics that can tell you something, but they're not the most important metrics. The second is very obvious, very simple. It's just money. We worship money as a culture, and that has bled over into the church. Money can drive so many things when it comes to church decision making and money. Do we have the donor base to support this? Where's the money going to come from? It's like, don't even worry about asking God if that's something you should or shouldn't do and then figure out the money thing later. It's like the money thing can come first. And it goes back to ancient Mesopotamia with the fields and the crops and not knowing if you're going to make it. We want to make sure we have enough in reserve to be able to make sure that we can withstand some difficult seasons. And part of that is due to the structures that we've created with paid staff, where you have to make sure you have X number of hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank in case the giving dries up, that you can sustain these people and the responsibility that you have of having a staff like that. But money becomes an idol at some point when we begin trusting less in God and trusting more in our reserves, trusting more in our ability to have the congregation give. You see this when churches just go after the members and send these letters and demand the tithe and all this. Money becomes an idol, and it's very dangerous. It's one of the most dangerous idols you could possibly imagine. Jesus said you cannot serve both God and money. Jesus says that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evils. Not all evil and not all money, it's just the love of money. When you let money get in too deep, it becomes your master, and then you begin serving it. And we see this in our churches when our churches begin serving the money rather than allowing the money to serve God. The third is power. What kind of influence do we have in the community? How does the community see us? Are the right people coming to your church? I've seen people, in order to take on political positions, switch congregations to be in the right kind of church, to be able to have the right kind of influence, to have the right kind of power. That can easily turn into idolatry, the idolatry of the church, where we're not just saying, well, God, I trust you within my own community of faith to take care of these things and to put me in the position that you want to put me in. No, I'm going to manipulate church in order to position myself to get in with the right business deals, the right political dealings, the right political party, the certain kind of view on the issues that I want to align myself with within the political arena. Power is one of the most tempting things because we don't want to not be okay. We want to be comfortable. In order to be comfortable, we need influence. In order to have influence, we need power. So these things all go together. The fourth thing is control. We love our control. We want to be in charge. We want to do it our way. We begin trusting more in ourselves than we do in God. Control is a monster idol in so many churches where we orchestrate things down to the nth degree so there is no room for the Spirit to move. There's no room for spontaneity. There's no checking in with God to find out what he wants for the church, because he might take us a direction that we really didn't want to go, and we know which way we want to go already because we are in charge and we're in control. Authority is another one. If you want to talk about control, that might be a better word for it. The idolatry of authority. Who has authority? Who gives authority? What positions come with it and what positions don't? All those things can easily turn into idols that subvert the will of God and the cause of the kingdom within the local congregation. The fifth is the cult of personality. We see these mega church pastors, even small church pastors, where the whole thing revolves around this one person. And you begin replacing God, here's the idolatry part, with a rock star, with the rock show, with the smooth talking. This is not every big church, it's just certain churches, but it's a temptation to turn people into God. It's like Herod in the book of Acts, who went out in these radiant clothes. Josephus says in the book of Acts, talks about him, people declaring that he's like a god, and then he doesn't say, hey, no, don't talk like that. Some people feel like their pastor is like Jesus to them. Just like in The Chosen, with the actor of Jesus, people walk up to him and just act like he's Jesus, and he has enough humility to say, I am not Jesus. Do our pastors or our preachers and ministers have enough humility to say, I am not Jesus? Don't follow me. You got to follow him. You only follow me to the degree that I am following him. The sixth is idolatry of our intellect. When we begin thinking that we know all we need to know to make the decisions, to set the direction, to cast the vision, to create the mission, to create the programs that need to be in place for people to be happy, our intellect can become an idol that we begin to worship, or we begin to replace the knowledge and the wisdom of God with our own ability to cogitate on things. We get in leadership meetings and we don't reference the Bible. We don't go to prayer. We don't ask for outside advice. We don't fast and pray and ask God for wisdom, like he says to do in James 1:5. And so our own intellect can become an idol that we worship, thinking that we are sufficient in all that we know to direct the church in the way that we believe it's supposed to go. It's arrogance. And the last may be surprising, but it's the Bible. The Bible can become an idol where we say, this is all we need. God has said and done enough. We don't need to look for outside help. We don't need to ask God for direction. We don't need to fast and pray about it. We don't need to wait on his lead. We don't need to wait on a word from him. We don't need to wait on the Holy Spirit. The word is enough. There's a word for this called cessationism, where you say the Holy Spirit doesn't actually even do anything. Some people believe this. I believed this growing up, that the Holy Spirit doesn't do anything, they say. And so we're kind of left to our own intellect and the Bible in order to take care of everything. And the Bible is amazing, and it's inspired, and it's sufficient for so many things. But it doesn't mean God stopped talking. It doesn't mean that we can't hear him. It doesn't mean that he can't direct us or help us or empower us. So the Bible itself can become an idol that we use to prop up our own self, our own interpretation, as if it were the very view of God himself, as if what I think and what God thinks are exactly the same. Or maybe we flip that and go, it just so happens that God thinks the same things I do. Wow, lucky God, lucky God. He might be so amazingly blessed to think like I do. And you see this when you talk to people and you give them something from the Bible, and they're like, well, that's not what God meant. That's not what he said. And they say something completely foreign to the scriptures. You're like, where on earth did you get that idea from? Well, that's what God thinks. Oh my goodness. Well, that's a real problem. And we begin using the Bible as a tool to destroy people rather than to build people up. Bible itself can become something that we worship rather than worshiping the God who inspired the Bible. Literally, I've heard saying growing up, we are people of the book. I would rather hear somebody say, we are people of the Christ. And there are more things we could cover. This, again, is not every church. It's just a snippet of what's going on out there. And we need to caution against these things. We need to teach against these things. When we see them, we need to call them out for what they are. So let's be aware. Let's be on guard. And let's speak the truth. Y'all take care. Watch another video. I'm going to put one up here on the screen that I think will bless you if you have just another minute to watch. So catch you later.